of the usual drama between the chairman and the ranking member. We'll bring you excerpts of that vetting process yesterday.
I believe that in the last 7 years, I served my country well as minority leader, contributing to, you know how I got it under your slaves, getting Bagbin elected as speaker. And for many in the NDC, those of you who were at Marriott Hotel, the Honorable Yusuf and Soyene and nobody is here, I told them that a tortoise will ride an elephant at dawn. You remember that? Didn't a tortoise ride an elephant? We worked towards it and we achieved it. And you know, I had Honorable Muntaka. We had a certain gelling chemistry of a relationship. So as minority leader, getting Bagbin elected was significant for me to change the course of parliamentary accountability in our country. I have never, ever regretted being changed as minority leader. I don't carry guilt in my heart. I've had my opportunity. I went out there to campaign and work for the NDC because I was convinced that in terms of the management of the economy, I wasn't satisfied with how the MPP had managed the country and its governance. So I don't carry guilt in my heart. I had a rare opportunity to serve, probably the first in my part of the world, if not the first in my country. And those who know me, there is a Quranic verse that I share with Muhammad Aman Rasul. God does not give you a burden you cannot carry. So I'm sure at that time, God wanted a certain burden off my head, which burden was that don't be minority leader, be MP for Tamale South. I keep telling my colleagues that my greatest asset is the preservation of Tamale. On the authority of President Mahama, I'm sure his Minister of Finance, if this House approved, the Honorable Atuforson, will present the reset budget of the government. It will include some provision of some 345 million cedis to cater for admission fees for students undertaking courses in the normal subject areas, not professional areas like medicine. And for President Mahama, this is a model to experiment. You will look at it. How do we fare as a country? If it is possible for expansion, then he will expand it. And he's not asked that if you are able, you should not. We know that some students have already paid their admission fees. It will be refunded to them, Honorable Leader. School feeding for senior high school was largely done in a centralized form by the previous government, taking advantage of two institutions, the Buffer Stock Company and the Ghana Commodity Exchange. We have to phase out implementation because we cannot afford any food shortages as the schools run. If we are not careful, there will come a time that you would have done purchases and major suppliers will say that they won't do it because they've not been guaranteed or assured. So we have to deal with the cash flow problem, which is a matter which can be resolved between the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Education. But for us is to assure that we stop any potential disruption of the school calendar arising out of the lack of or delay in getting these food items to the school. We will work with those institutions, but define a role for the headmasters in a phased-out process.
All right, that was Haruna Iddrisu, former minority leader. He earlier served as majority leader and then became minority leader. He also this is his third ministry, actually, in the era of John Mills. He served as communications minister and then transitioned to the trade ministry and then later to labor relations. He's now going to the Ministry of Education. Let me go live on Zoom and speak to Peter Pate-Anti. He's Executive Director for the Institute of Education Studies. Peter, good morning to you and welcome to The Big Issue on New Day.
Good morning, Professor.
Right, so I'm sure you monitored the vetting process of Haruna Iddrisu. In brief, what did you make of it?
Thank you very much. Good morning to your viewers and listeners too. I think that he showed political class. He demonstrated knowledge of the ministry that he's been asked to go and supervise. He also showed that he understands the educational policy prescriptions of the NDC, and he was articulate as usual and very forthright with his answers. I think that he showed command over the issues that were posed to him.
Aren't you running ahead of yourself? He's not even occupied the position yet, and you are excited about just his words?
No, excited is your word. I mean, you asked me about my view about his vetting, and I'm telling you what I observed. He showed command over the subject matter that he was asked about, and also he demonstrated political class. So you see that I think it will be one of the shortest vetting that we have had since we started this process, and it's because of his political capital and the role that is played in the political system in this country. So it was expected that he would have such a nice vetting that we witnessed yesterday.
Right. Let's get into specifics. And I think one of the major things he talked about was the NDC's policy ahead of their elections, which was to ensure free first-year tertiary education. And he just suggested yesterday in his during his vetting that for those who have already paid, once the policy gets into full implementation, they're going to be reimbursed. What do you make of it?
Well, for me, I think I've made my position clear on that particular policy. I think that as a education policy person, I think that the NDC were too excited getting into 2024 elections, and that led to some of these promises. We have a lot of inefficiencies in the system, and I was thinking that getting this amount of money or pushing this amount of money to pay for fees for first years wouldn't be the ideal thing to do. Of course, they have indicated that they will do as they said during the campaign. I think that after the first attempt this year, they should find a way to phase this thing out and then channel the resources to the school. The students' loan trust fund. And let me tell you, they have rightly diagnosed the problem. Normally, when admissions comes out of, let's say, the 100 people that have been given admission, 30% or 30 would not be able to go under the admission because of financial difficulty. And that is understandable. So if you are designing a policy to cure that particular challenge or problem that you have identified, you don't design a policy in such a way that it covers those who would ideally still be able to honor the admission. And that is what they are doing. The same challenge that we had with the implementation of the free senior high school. So it means that you are throwing away money to people who technically would have had would be able to pay for. You could have used the money for the 70% to do.
And Peter, that's quite interesting because for a party that criticized the implementation of free SHS and suggested that there was a possibility of making it more targeted instead of the wholesale approach to it, you would imagine that in trying to roll out a policy that caters for people who may be disadvantaged, they would also target it, probably by conducting a means test to be able to ascertain those who are unable to pay. And you've just suggested that, the research, indicates that about 30% of those who go into tertiary education are unable to pay their fees. But to now, suggest, as the minister did yesterday, that they're going to refund, or reimburse even to people who are able to pay, that should make it difficult for sustainability. Unfortunately, we lost Peter Party Ante on the phone lines, but I've got Fred Avonyo. Oh, Fred Agbenyo. He's joined me in studio. He's a latest member of parliament for SAL, for the SAL constituency, a very good friend of mine. Fred, it's good to have you on the program.
Good to have you, my brother.
Yeah, for the Guan constituency.
Guan constituency. That's the official name.
That's official name. Yes, so SAL is what?
It's an acronym of the four traditional areas that made up the district of the constituency.
Okay.
So Central Kofi is the S, then Akpafu, Lolobi, and Likpe.
Right.
Which is more representative and describe exactly who we are.
Okay.
So a lot of people think that the name Guan, we need to look at it again and go back to the south. Because anytime you mention Guan to be ask you like Guan.
Guan is a language, isn't it?
Oh no, there are tribes all over the country.
Okay.
Right from Efutu
across the country.
We have Guans all over the place, and so it doesn't define us exclusively.
Exactly.
The SAL does.
Right.
So there's a conversation we have with the stakeholders and see if the possibility of maybe going back to SAL. So I want to mention that people know exactly what you are talking about.
Yeah. So a lot has been happening. You want to comment on the latest release of presidential staffers?
Yeah, fantastic. I saw the list this morning. My sister, Joyce Bauer, this role she's played all through when going to opposition, supported the president throughout the campaign. Every place the president visited was with him. And, we know she's very, very effective. She's a lawyer, very intelligent, smart woman. She used to be the deputy minister at transport under the late Madame Jifativo. We all saw the role she played and the work they did at that particular ministry. Two strong women. And so I'm not surprised the president has asked her to continue with the role that she played all this while. I'm sure she's going to perform very, very well. Our comrade Standogbe, we all know him. Sometimes you wonder if the security architecture of everything he controls, he gets things done, he's a result-oriented person. And so I'm happy that they've made him Deputy Chief of Staff in charge of operations. I'm sure it's going to work very, very, very well. And Madam Oyelita, Bampo, we all know her as well. Gender activist, former minister for gender and social protection. She was a parliamentary candidate at Adenta, a distinguished lawyer. So she's going to be in charge of administration. Deputy Chief of Staff in charge of administration at the presidency. Fantastic. The Chief of Staff himself, is a special human being. And sometimes I don't know how he manages it, And so with these two persons to complement him and assist him, I'm sure they'll be able to run the office of the president very, very, very well. That person has been appointed to help our dear Shamima. She's your colleague in the media. We know her work. We know how effective she is when it comes to communication. Understanding of communication. So she's going to be the deputy spokesperson, and I believe she's going to do a great job. Beatrice Anna is there as a staffer.
I was asking earlier on about the spokesperson position. Is Felix going to remain there?
Well, the president did that decision finally, I don't know. Currently,
but is he able to mix that
is the one
with his
acting now.
Parliamentary responsibilities?
The president did that decision at the right time. What we all know is that currently is the acting spokesperson for the president. And so if the president thinks that he can marry the two roles, why not? Just as we have ministers who are still MPs and ministers who are still board chairmen and board members, I don't think that it will be too difficult of things. Of course, we have had a minister of information who is an MP as well, and he manages the government's communication. And so if the president thinks that he can do that work very well, why not? We all know Comrade Felix is very, very effective, very, very efficient, and whatever role is assigned, I believe he's able to do it. He's worked in that area before. Don't forget, he was the Deputy Minister of Communication under President Mahama, and we saw the work that he did. And so far, we see the way he has managed the communication that is coming from the presidency. And so, if the president thinks I should continue to play that particular role, why not? I think he can marry it and do it. A lot of people, I was reading messages about Nanaya Jantua is coming and staff at the presidency. You know, Nana comes somebody with a lot of experience. She worked with Free Zone for several years, worked with URC too, and for several years. She became the General Secretary of CPP. We all been seeing her in the media, her communication, a level of understanding of issues and national issues and their contribution. And so I believe that at the presidency, she's going to help to make sure that we run efficiently and effectively as a government. I can only wish all of them well. My own uncle, Larry Bevolate, former National Security Coordinator, we know the Royals play, a very distinguished, very proud, is my constituent as well. You know, from Lekpemate.
Okay.
Oh, yes, he's from Lekpemate. Dr. Badasamoto is from Lekpebala.
I see.
You know,
the legendary.
The legendary program, that's right. You know, Franklin Kujo is from Lolobi and all these guys. So we know the role he has played. He was a former National Security Coordinator under Professor Mills. We saw the way he handled issue of security in this country. And so the Sahel region is a very peculiar region. We all know what the happenings there. I'm talking about Burkina Faso, Mali, you know, and all those other places. We all know what is happening over there. And so we need to be able to build some, you know, relationship, you know, as we move on. And for him to go and play that role as a security expert, I think it's a very good decision that the president has taken. And so I wish all of them the very best of luck in their new roles, and I believe they will serve Mother Ghana. Their contribution will be for Mother Ghana and for, you know, the success of the president's vision and aim. I'm not doing this in himself. Former Minister of Finance, Honorable Setekpe, will be advisor on the economy at the presidency. Of course, he has been there before, first as the Deputy Minister of Finance and later became the Substantive Minister. So to be an advisor, I think that it is not out of place at all. He's worked with Honorable Dr. Atufosin. When he was the minister, Dr. Atufosin was the deputy. And so I think they have a very good working relationship that whatever advice he brings on board will be looked at closely as we roll out our policies. Okay. Professor Dodu, very interesting. I know he's a man of many fields, but the area that a lot of people seem to know him is in the area of sports. You know, this time around, he's at the presidency. Anti-corruption distance. And I believe that it's going to work well. Professor, the Secretary to Cabinet, you know, he is been in charge of our manifesto, he's been the chairman of our manifesto committee for several years, you know, a very well accomplished, distinguished professor as that. So for him to be the Secretary of Cabinet, if you remember, yesterday at the vetting committee, this issue came up about the Cabinet Secretary, whether one is in place or not. And at least the name has finally come. We all know who is in charge of Cabinet when it comes to the secretarial job. And so I wish all of them the very best of luck. The president is trying to keep up to the promise he made, that within the first 14 days we put his cabinet. We're told
the final list of nominees will be presented to Parliament today, later this afternoon.
Yeah, I think today is the 14th day since he's been sworn into office. And so in fulfillment of that particular promise, the expectation then is that the rest of the list should come out, especially the cabinet. He said you put his cabinet in place. Some people are trying to put a spin on it to say that he will control the entire government. You know that, for instance, before you can even get boards in place, you need a Council of State. You know, so if you don't have a Council of State, you can't get a board. And the Council of State elections will be somewhere next month. And so you are limited by that. Even the chief executive appointed now, they are in acting capacity because the boards must confirm them. And so the president didn't promise that he will finish constituting his government within 14 days. He said his cabinet will be in place within 14 days. Right. Today is the 14th day, and I believe that he will do that. Okay. As the president, so far, everybody is happy with the appointments we have made. It shows clearly the focus and the vision of what we intend to do within the next 4 years as the president of the Republic of Ghana. Okay. Which you will say.
All right, Fred, I'll come back to you. Let me introduce my other guest. Nanaya Sapon is political aide to Alan Chemartain. That's a movement for change. Nanaya, good morning to you.
Good morning.
And welcome.
Thank you. You look great.
He's a fantastic gentleman.
I see.
Fred,
and Kwesi Botre Jr., Esquire, is a private legal practitioner and member of the NPP National Communications Team. Kwesi, good morning and welcome to the program. You look dapper.
Thank
All right. So, Nanaya, let me take your comment. You like to comment on the new list of appointees?
Yes. First of all, good morning to your viewers. Good morning to yourself. I had already stated on the same platform that one of the most critical elements to determine whether or not, or characteristics to determine whether or not a leader will perform or not, is his ability to be able to identify and put together a team to help him execute the vision or his agenda that he puts up. And when you are identifying these individuals, it means that you should be able to identify persons who also have an understanding of your vision, because many a times you would appoint people who themselves do not understand in any ways what your vision is, when they do not even understand how you intend to actually achieve and how far you want to go. And so I think that from the onset, the president has been very good in his identification of individuals and the putting up of the team. I would not want to go into individuals, but I think that the list, if it had come without the persons of Joyce and Stan Sandobe, I would have have a lot of questions to the president, because these are very fantastic individuals who have had the opportunity to serve the president, and they have served him well, both in opposition and when he was in government. I think that this should tell the very young people like us out there that loyalty and hard work indeed pays. And so congratulations to them. When I was coming, I was reading a lot of commentary on other social media platforms that had to do with Nanaya Jantua, and I was asking myself, why would people want to question, because she's CPP? But the question is, has she got the capacity to do? And when we did preach of a government of national unity, are we not supposed to start from a point? And so indeed, if the president has identified a talent or somebody who has who can be useful in his government within a certain cycle outside of the NDC, I think that it is good for the president to actually draw, because you understand, and so we should be able to identify these individuals.
So you're excited about her elevation?
It's not an elevation. I am excited about her appointment. She's not being Nana Ajantwa is Nana Ajantwa. It's not the appointment that is going to make her Nana Ajantwa. I think that you have known Nana Ajantwa probably from your from your days in school. She's I mean, the days when PURC was PURC and the noises, you would know that this is Nana Ajantwa. And of course, she's been herself. I don't think she's one of the persons that you would want to, or you can pinpoint as a political hypocrite. She's had her stance from the beginning, and her stance has been very clear. You understand? So I think that the appointments are excellent. I know we'll be touching on the veterans, yes, that happened yesterday, but if you look at the individuals that sat before the vetting committee yesterday, from the Roads and Highways Minister, Nidina ya na yemedin kwa Agboja na yemedeno. Agboja. If you look at Honorable Agboja, the extent and highways, excellent. I belong to the school of thought that said that somebody ought to answer to Ghanaians why we took out the road tolls. Somebody ought to pay. Somebody did cause financial loss to the state, and somebody ought to be held responsible. When they had vetted the Minister for Finance, I sat on the same platform and I said that one of the issues that I would want the Minister for Finance to deal with is that he should bring back the road tolls. You can't have these Burkinabes trucks drive on our motorway and on our highways without paying nothing to the government, without paying nothing to Ghanaians, destroying our roads. You understand? I mean, we could modernize it as the roads minister has indicated. If some of us or most Ghanaians have had the opportunity to watch documentaries, if not traveled, and we see how road tolls are paid electronically across other jurisdictions, and it reduces the wastage in the system, and it gathers a lot of money for road maintenance. All right, and even for the execution of new roads. This ought to be an issue for national dialogue, and for us to understand that is one avenue for us to be able to.
We'll go there.
Gather money.
But I just want your take on the ministerial.
Yes, and I mean, if you look at how Haruna Iddrisu performed, Aduna,
don't worry, we'll
excellent one.
We'll
so I
Chief,
think the
good morning.
President has been good on it.
Your brief comment on the new list of appointees.
Good morning to you. Good morning to my senior colleagues in the studio. Let me take this moment to sympathize with families who have lost their loved ones in the Obuasi incidents. I have seen a statement by President Mahama calling for an investigation into the matter. I think it's an unfortunate situation because I'm just reading on BBC. BBC has reported that about 7 persons have been killed by armed military men. I think it's a worrying situation that I think that we all should pay attention to, because today it might be in Obuasi, tomorrow who knows, it might be in another place. And these are 7 vibrant young people who have lost their lives. And so I think that as a nation, as a country, we should be very concerned about the situation. Unfortunately, when I read President Mahama's statement, I don't know the exact agency with the mandate to investigate the incident. I don't know if it is the police or maybe the military themselves or maybe a committee set up by the president. I don't know, because a few people have spoken to me that they want to petition the committee. They have some information.
I thought this was going to be very brief. You're spending a lot of time on it. You're actually digressing. I thought it was going to be very short.
It's a very short presentation, but my worry is 7 people dying. I mean, we cannot lose 7 Ghanaians and sit unconcerned as if nothing has happened. Well, these are lives of our dear brothers and sisters. And so I think that the president should do something about it. He's the commander-in-chief.
Yeah, so he's asked for an investigation into it. Let's wait and see what happens.
And that's what I'm asking. Who should investigate? Is it the police? Is it the military?
Let me just chip in. When you have that, you've done the service to us.
Let's not digress. Let's not digress.
You're a lawyer. And if there is a shooting incident and people have lost their lives, we all in this country know the institution that is supposed to do an investigation. So you don't say, please.
Gentlemen, I'm going to come in right now.
The lay people who walk by the roadside and do not.
Gentlemen,
I disagree with you. I entirely disagree with you. The president has the powers to set up a committee to investigate a shooting incident. So not necessarily the police. And so if you say that if there is a shooting incident, the police should investigate.
Mr. Boche.
If the president had wanted the police to investigate, the president could have clearly stated in the statement.
Made your point. That's fair.
So I'm only questioning who is responsible for the investigation taxed by the president. That's all I'm questioning.
Yeah, I get that.
And I think it's a fair comment, isn't it? Yeah, it's a fair comment.
Yeah, but you're not also doing fair to us.
I mean, going forward, going forward, I think that I am impressed by the appointments made by the president so far. I am particularly excited about the fact that young people, have been called to serve in this administration, and I think it's a good start. And so I wish them well. I've been following the vetting. I think so far it's been excellent. It's early days yet. I mean, these are tier-over appointments, tier-over ministers and tier-over presidential staffers. And so we wish them well. and particularly for the youthful persons in there. I hope they go and make all of us proud, because this country belongs to the youth. We have seen what our elders have done and can do. It's now time for the youth to take over. And so I'm excited about the appointment of, Joyce Bauer, Stan Dugbe, and everybody. And I am waiting for the appointment of Mr. Fred Agbenyo. And hopefully, hopefully President Mahama will see the good work they've done for him and reward them. And so I think so far it's been great, and I wish them well.
All right. So we can now look at the vetting process. Before you came in, I played excerpts of yesterday's encounter. I don't know if my producer would like to play back that vetting process with Haruna Iddrisu. Just a bit of it, and then we'll come back in studio.
I believe that in the last 7 years, I served my country well as minority leader, contributing to, how I got it under your slaves, getting Bagbin elected as speaker. And for many in the NDC, those of you who were at Marriott Hotel, the Honorable Yusuf and Soyene and nobody is here, I told them that a tortoise will ride an elephant at dawn. You remember that? Didn't the tortoise ride an elephant? We worked towards it and we achieved it. And I had Honorable Muntaka. We had a certain gelling chemistry of a relationship. So as minority leader, getting Bagbin elected was significant for me to change the course of parliamentary accountability in our country. I have never, ever regretted being changed as minority leader. I don't carry guilt in my heart. I've had my opportunity. I went out there to campaign and work for the NDC because I was convinced that in terms of the management of the economy, I wasn't satisfied with how the MPP had managed the country and its governance. So I don't carry guilt in my heart. I had a rare opportunity to serve, probably the first in my part of the world, if not the first in my country. And those who know me, there is a Quranic verse that I share with Muhammad Aman Rasul. God does not give you a burden you cannot carry. So I'm sure at that time, God wanted a certain burden off my head, which burden was that don't be minority leader, be MP for Tamale South. I keep telling my colleagues that my greatest asset is the preservation of Tamale. On the authority of President Mahama, I'm sure his Minister of Finance, if this House approved, Honorable Atuforson, will present the reset budget of the government. It will include some provision of some 345 million cedis to cater for admission fees for students undertaking courses in the normal subject areas, not professional areas like medicine. And for President Mahama, this is a model to experiment. You will look at it. How do we fare as a country? If it is possible for expansion, then he will expand it. And he's not asked that if you are able, you should not. We know that some students have already paid their admission fees. It will be refunded to them, Honorable Leader. School feeding for senior high school was largely done in a centralized form by the previous government, taking advantage of two institutions, the Buffer Stock Company and the Ghana Commodity Exchange. We have to phase out implementation because we cannot afford any food shortages as the schools run. If we are not careful, there will come a time that you would have done purchases and major suppliers will say that they won't do it because they've not been guaranteed or assured. So we have to deal with the cash flow problem, which is a matter which can be resolved between the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Education. But for us is to assure that we stop any potential disruption of the school calendar arising out of the lack of or delay in getting these food items to the school. We will work with those institutions, but define a role for the headmasters in a phased-out process.
The facility has been in place for almost 8 years now. If it is only about the production of sugar cane to make the factory work.
All right, so that was Haruna Iddrisu, the Education Minister Designate. You also had the Minister Designate for Agriculture speaking there in that vetting process yesterday carried out in Parliament. Of course, it wasn't devoid of the usual drama between the chairman and the ranking member. So Haruna touched on a number of issues. He said the free SHS, categorically said the free SHS policy will not be cancelled and that it will be reviewed. He talked about providing boarding facilities to E-blocks where necessary, and the fact also that licensure examinations will be abolished. Fred, let me start off with you. Did you watch the vetting process, and what are your own reactions to the things that came out?
Yeah, I was there yesterday to watch the vetting process, and I must say that Honorable Haruna Iddrisu, we all know him. You know, he's not a new person at all, and very, very predictable. He distinguished himself very, very, very well. And I remember when the appointment first came, people questioning that, oh, but he's a lawyer, he's not an educationist, can he perform at that ministry? But if you observe over the years, persons who have been appointed to head ministries may not necessarily be people who have authorities over those ministries. It's purely about leadership. You always have technocrats who are supposed to do their day-to-day activities. You are supposed to provide a vision and provide some leadership and make sure that whatever the vision of the administration or the government is, we are able to implement it. And nonetheless, when he appeared before the committee, his understanding of the issues and what the things that we can do to bring about improvement. You know, this whole free SHS debate, up until when elections were coming, I didn't know that when you say you are going to review something, it can also be interpreted to mean that you are going to cancel it. And nobody has ever said that we are going to cancel a free SHS, because when you go to the Constitution, and this is a point we have made time with that number, that it is a constitutional imperative that we do education free even up to the secondary school level. The only clause or condition in there is that subject to availability of resources. You know, we are supposed to have the FQ program, which started in 1995. That was supposed to have ended, but it was a 10-year program probation period, by which time basic education was supposed to be completely free in this country. The question we ask today is basic education really free in Ghana? Have we been able to achieve the target that we set for ourselves? No. Then we roll on board this free SHS. And as if for the past 8 years, all the attention, all the target, everything was just on SS. If you are not getting the basics right, you are not thinking about after the SS, then what are you doing? Because once more people are going to the secondary school level, naturally they will move to tertiary level. Are you expanding infrastructure at that level? What provision are you making for them when finally they have completed the tertiary levels where they'll move to and go and work? So really, we need a complete overhaul in the educational sector. What we have now, we just don't know what it is. At the point in time, we were told that they were even going to cancel this BEC examination, and that the first terminating point will be after SS. You know, so some students, you know, when GSS 1, 2 years ago, knew that we were not going to write things like BEC. Where we are today, we don't even know what the program is. So I'm very happy that Minister Designate himself has said that we are going to sit down, we are going to look at it, we are going to review it and do it better. I don't know if you ever had an opportunity of going to our school to see the states in which this so-called free SHS is being run. In most cases, we go to the dining halls are packed to capacity. You know, we didn't add additional infrastructure. The dormitories are full to capacity. The food they are fed with is nothing good to write home about. Things are simply not just in place. Even the teaching and learning materials that you need to be able to get effective, you know, education, they are simply not in place. And so if you don't review and do things well, we are going to run into trouble. Now, I heard the minister saying that we are going to look at these E-blocks, and when necessary, we attach some boarding facility to it. I think that we're very, very clear in our minds when we're building the E-blocks. The whole idea, if you remember, when the GSS system was introduced, because it was a middle school concept, but I think there about 1988, 89, then the GSS thing was triggered in. What the then administration did was to be what they call the community secondary schools, so that people will live in their houses and just wake up in the morning and work and go to school. So oftentimes, they will situate the school, if there are about 4 or 5 communities or traditional areas, at the middle. so that at least there's some level of proximity to everybody. It was a conscious and deliberated, because we didn't want to go and pack everybody up in the boarding house where feeding and all this becomes a challenge for parents. The same concept was what the E block was supposed to achieve. The school is situated over there, people stay in their various homes. What you do now is to provide means of transportation that will move them from their homes to the school, move them from school back to the house. So that at this point, parents now also come in to bear part of the cost. So that the feeding you are doing, the body house and all those things, that can be a problem. The children then would have stayed in their homes, eat whatever their parents will provide and go to school. So we still need to look at it, the original policy, the original program, and see to it that it materializes, and we achieve exactly the objective that we set out there to achieve. I have so much confidence in Honorable Haruna Iddrisu. This is not the first ministry he's going to head. As you rightly said, it was at the communication ministry, and the record is there for everybody to go and check. At a point, I think it was with trade, it was at the Ministry of Trade too, and you can go and check, and then it was with labor and all that. So going back to education, especially around this time of all the challenge that we have, I have always maintained that there are a number of ministries that we cannot play our usual politics with in this country. Education is the bedrock of everything. Education is the future of our country. Health, agriculture, security, these are things that we should always make a consensus around. It's certain the president has indicated that we are going to have some kind of conservative, engagement before all the stakeholders coming on board. Because if you listen to Nagrats where they stand on this phase SHS, it's different from what government, the past administration thinks about how the program must be implemented. If you engage the stakeholders and even the NGOs and around the educational sector, they also hold a different view. And so what we need to do is to pull all these people around the table. Bring your views, bring yours, let's discuss, then let's all agree and come up with something that we can run with over the period.
And talking about stakeholders, these stakeholders that you refer to, including Peter, Party, Anti, have raised concerns about your first-year free tertiary education policy. They say that you are repeating the same challenge or difficulty that you criticize the New Patriotic Party for in the implementation of the free SHS policy. So, for instance, you want to ensure that first-year students who are unable to pay their university fees are catered for. Why are you not making it targeted instead of this wholesale approach to funding, where we now hear the minister say that once the policy goes into full implementation, they're going to reimburse those who've already paid?
You see, we need to show some level of credibility as political elites in this country. That when you enter into a social contract with the people and you get power, you do same. If for any reason you cannot do exactly what you promised the people, you get back to them and explain to them. It's a policy.
Was it a realistic promise?
Under the circumstances, from where we sat, the analysis that we did, the calculation that we did, it was a feasible thing to do. All right? I have always
based on the calculation, the costing, knowing that we're in an IMF program, we say that we don't have enough funds available. Is this something we wanted to commit to?
I hold a strong view that social policy, social interventions are not permanent interventions. They are interventions that we put in place to solve or to mitigate a challenge, while to look for a lasting solution. Now, this is a promise, a policy, a promise that we have given that we want to do this thing. Because we all agree, all of us who attend school know that the most difficult time in entry school is the first year that you're entering school, where you have to buy your personal belongings, you are paying admission fees, you are paying this and all of that. The promise that we made is admission fees. That because the challenge for most people, the first year to enter into tertiary institutions, government is going to absorb that fee. We went further to promise that continuing students, those who be in like level 200, level 300 and all that, they now will assess their continued fees through the what's the name? This system, that the loan system that we have in place. So you just take your admission letter over there and then we advance money for you to pay your fees and all that. We have put this in place. But definitely once the minister takes office, the finance minister takes office, and we really get to appreciate what we are inheriting, we will need to go back, sit down with the stakeholders and agree what will be feasible. I agree that even with this free SHS system as we have it, that it should not be a wholesale thing. If you are here right now, your son is going to secondary school, my brother, I know you can pay their fees. If it's 1,000 Ghana, you can do 1,000 Ghana cedis. I believe I can pay. I believe Nana can pay. My brother, the lawyer, can pay. There are people out there who genuinely cannot raise the 1,000, cannot raise the 2,000 Ghana cedis to pay their fees. And so just as we have done with Leaves and other targeted programs, through a survey, we should be able to know those who are in need. And I've always maintained that to roll such policies, I will implement them in the rural areas. There are some people who are living in the cities and urban areas who really have no business living there. And so if they know that if they go to the rural areas, all the screens over there, they are free. First of all, it will help to even decongest the cities and towns and all that. They'll go back and settle there because the children can enjoy some freebies from the state. And so these are, when we say we are going to reset, we are going to review. These are the things that we'll be looking at. If we announce a policy and along the line, we realize that one, either it is not sustainable or that the impact we want to make, we are not making it, definitely we'll get back to the drawing board and review it. If along the line we think that, you know what, this paying of admission fee to tertiary students who are in the first year is not something we should generalize, that everybody must be a beneficiary of, but rather we should have those who indeed cannot and help them, we will do that.
Right.
And we will not be ashamed to come back to the help of this country and tell them that based on the work we have done. You see, there's one thing when you are in opposition, are part of the country, where all the figures that are thrown at you, the data that is given to you, you are not even able to verify the data, you are not able to authenticate the data. Some of the things that government will tell you we have done, or where we have gotten to, you enter into office and then you realize that you are far below even the targets they have given you, the data that is presented to you. So once we take over office fully and we know what is in the kitty and we look at all the challenges around us, we'll be able to make a firm determination as to if we can proceed as we promised in opposition or not. If we cannot, we'll engage the public, and I believe Ghanaians are very rational people, and if we explain everything to them well, they will listen.
And
however,
let me hear you.
Just to conclude, as the minister has said, the promise we made was that we are going to pay for the first years. So we need to do that before we come back. There's any other considerations that we need to do as we move forward.
Let me hear you.
Yes. I think that yesterday, Minister Designate for Education did excellently well, in my view. And more so because I'm a Tamale boy, I will be very much biased because he's one of the very young, now not young, but he had been one of the very young individuals who had inspired most of the young men and women in Tamale precisely and in the northern sector. And I think that his performance over the years as a member of parliament and also as a leader in the house has been of great inspiration to us. I think if you would want to put his output on a weight scale as a minister, as an MP, as a leader in the house, I think he weighs so much that we really appreciate his works as being somebody who had actually made the world believe that indeed something good can come out of the north, from the schools he attended and all of that. And so we appreciate his person. And yesterday, once again, he exhibited that he is one person who can be able to walk the talk given the opportunity to perform. But you see, the education sector, I have always said that we do not have to do politics with some of the sectors of our economy. And one of such areas is our education. And that when we are having a discussion on it, we should do it devoid of all political colors, because that is where the future is. Whether we would want the children to have, or the young ones to have a certain value, whether we would want them to go a certain way, whether we can have people to hand over this nation to, that we would go to sleep and say that indeed the future is bright. It is one of the areas, because that is the foundation of us all. And so when we have gone on to political platforms, and I don't know, for lack of a better expression, out of anxiety, we make certain promises in that area, then it scares me. I know, or I may think that the president and his team, because there are a lot of educationists on the team. I mean, some have been vice chancellors before rising through the ranks. Some have been headmasters and headmistresses. Some have worked in the educational services. Some have worked in the ministries. So putting that team together for them to suggest such a promise means that they might have actually thought through. But my question is, what is the financial sustainability of the promise that was made and in an attempt to deliver? How sustainable is it? I think that if we have been able to go through the system of secondary education and haven't qualified to enter into the tertiary, the university for that matter, then we should put in place mechanisms for that individual to be able to access money or to have been able to raise some money to pursue higher education. And there are a lot of jurisdictions that we could learn the same thing from. I believe that there are institutions in this country that could offer financial assistance in terms of even loans to these individuals who have qualified, so that it does not become a burden on the state. Government should make funds accessible. All right. Why are we not able to ring fence the proceeds from the GET fund, channeling it to a trust where students could apply, have access to these loans, and pay their own fees, and then come and pay back to the state for others to also use? Why are we not able to put in a framework whereby financial institutions in this country would have affordable educational loans for individuals to access, to be able to pay their fees? This is my view.
Right.
So why are we not able to, from the senior high level, create that platform so that the students from that stage begins to develop entrepreneurial skills, begin to have attachments to institutions?
He's talking about a lot more focus on TVET.
That we are able to train these SHS students to develop skills for themselves, to make money for themselves, to take care of themselves into the tertiary institution. Why should it be a burden on government? Now, what has been the outcome, or what has been the challenges of the free SHS? Have we been able to deal with those challenges yet? If we have not been able to deal with those challenges, why are we bringing in more burden onto the state? These are things that we need to discuss.
Right.
It's been a political promise, as Fred said, a social, what was the term used? A social contract. But I think that if we have a real look at this whole thing, it would help us. Because one,
right.
I just spoke for 2 minutes.
No. You're speaking for 4 minutes.
So let me just.
I'll give you 30 seconds. Yeah.
See, we need to ask certain questions. Are we talking about just government universities, state-owned universities? Is that what we are talking about? If we are talking about state-owned universities, are we including the technical universities? There are some colleges that are offering degrees now. You do the diploma, then you have the opportunity to actually top up to do your degree. Are all of these ones also included? What happens to those who attended the private universities? Are we also not Ghanaians? So let us actually have a clear cut. All the ambiguities around this whole policy ought to be dealt with. And let us not come back tomorrow and have these same challenges we have with the free SHS that we have. And government ought to do, because we still have the infrastructure to deal with. We have students who gain admission into the universities that do not have places to sleep. And then we have the private man putting up hostel facilities there and charging 10 times the amount government would have charged. Are we able to rechannel these monies to providing this infrastructure for these students? What happens to the training of the human resource within the educational sector? The human development. Have we looked at it? Have we looked at how to transition these students from the universities into the working institution? It takes money to do all of these things. So I think we need to be able to set our priorities right. Where the students will be able to make money to pay their own fees, I think we should allow them to do that.
All right, Mr. Kwasi, let me hear you.
Mr. Kwasi. Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead.
So I think that the no fee stress policy is a good policy. It's a good policy, and I think that President Akufo-Addo has laid down a solid foundation in the educational sector for any successive government to build upon. Because if you look at the free senior high school policy, it's had its own shortfalls, it's had its own challenges, but to a very large extent, I think that it's been one of the most impactful policies we've had in the Fourth Republic. If you look at the number of persons, young persons that have benefited from the policy, it's worth commending. I mean, and I agree that there is no policy anywhere globally that is 100% efficient. I mean, all policies have their challenges, they have their shortfalls, have their downsides. And so I think that with the free senior high school policy, President Akufo-Addo and the SWAL administration have laid down a very formidable foundation for the current NDC administration to build upon to roll out the no fee stress policy. And I think that when we look at the free senior high school, like colleagues have said, one of the major challenges had to do with infrastructure. And I agree that infrastructure was really a challenge. But what the SWAL government sought to do was to expand infrastructure in the existing senior high schools, because you realize that the current Gen Zs, the current young people, they don't want they want the well-noted A and B schools, the Addis Adults, the Pampers, the Accra Girls, and the Fansima. So what the SWAL administration decided to do was to expand infrastructures in those schools, because when it's time for school placement, in fact, nobody has ever contacted me to change his or her ward school to a community day school. I mean, without due respect, they all want the node schools, the well-notable schools. And so the SWAL administration decided to invest in expanding infrastructure in these existing senior high schools.
The former education minister yesterday say that there was not much focus on existing infrastructure, and so they had to build new infrastructure. But you would notice, I mean, I had the pleasure of visiting my old school about somewhere last year, and the new buildings put up by government had even deteriorated further than the old buildings, And I think that there's not really much focus on maintenance, and that's the problem, I
mean, that's a national problem. I mean, not just with education. When you talk about maintenance, it's a whole national, issue that I think we should have a broader conversation about that. But the point I'm trying to make is that when it comes to education, I agree we shouldn't play politics with it, but President Akufo-Addo has laid down a solid foundation. And Honorable Fred Agbenyon mentioned that they promised a no admission fee policy. I think that is not what they promised. And if you look at page 6 of the NDC Youth Manifesto, they promised no academic fees. It was very specific.
Yeah,
and he said admission. I don't know if maybe it was because there's a difference between admission fees and academic fees. There are two distinct things. Okay. Yes, and so I think that
what is the difference?
There's a distinction. If you take the breakdown for the fees, you realize that there's admission fees and there is academic fees and there is other fees that one has to pay, and so there's a clear distinction between. I mean, this is not even up for an argument. There's a clear distinction between. No. When I landed, you come in respectfully. So there's a clear distinction between the two. Yes, and so I think that as political elites, we should strive to deliver on promises we make. The politics of promise, win, and shift must end. And so I am very happy that Honorable Haruna Iddrisu, Minister for Education Designate, has mentioned that government intends to roll out the no fee stress policy. It's a good thing that I think that when we roll it out well, it's going to help. My only challenge with it is, so after the first year, what happens? Because I know
it's a gradual process.
I know a lot of people who genuinely are brilliant students, but genuinely cannot afford to pay for tertiary education. And so if we are looking at the first year, I think government should, consider...
They've said it's a gradual process.
Yes,
so
yes.
Access to the student loan.
We all know the challenges that students have faced with student loans over the years. I mean, it's been an age-old challenge with accessing student loans. I don't know if the NDC is going to do something new about it, but it's been an age-old challenge. And so when I was in the university, I'd wanted to access for student loan. I couldn't have access to it, because it was a very cumbersome process. It was about whom you know and all that. So maybe the NDC is going to do something new about it, and I hope they do something new about it. And so I would not sit here to say that because I'm in the NPP, or the MPP disagrees with the no fee stress policy. We all wish President Mahama well. We hope he delivers on his promises, because at the end of the day, if he delivers on his promises, it's going to be a better Ghana for all of us. And if Ghana becomes, a better place, we are all going to prosper. We are all going to enjoy. I will be glad that my kids will not have to pay school fees from the basic level through to the tertiary level. And so, but it's early days yet, and I hope that they really, deliver on their promises, because, like I've mentioned, the politics of promise,
they are committed to delivering on it.
And so the no fee or no academic fee policy is something that they must pay attention to, because it was one of the reasons why most of the young people of this country voted for them.
How do you know that?
If you look at the statistics, or the voter statistics, clearly they won in most of the tertiary institutions. And I'm sure that this is a policy that directly goes to, benefit these young people.
And that's why they voted for them?
Of course, probably.
I see.
Probably now. Probably, yeah.
Okay.
So they have to deliver.
Okay.
In fact, they cannot fail. And
okay. I'm giving you guys a minute. It's just talk about the road toll policy. Government have just said it was illegal to have taken it off. They're bringing it back. Your government, the NPP, you took off the road toll. You said you were bringing the e-levy as a replacement.
So, on the
make that short in 1 minute.
On the issue of the road toll, the point is that the NPP government didn't abolish road toll. Road tolls.
What did they do?
Road tolls were. Let me land. Road tolls were not abolished under the NPP government. They were suspended.
Suspended?
Yes, they were suspended, because if you look at the road tolls came into force through an act of parliament. There was a law that established the road tolls, the Road Fund Act of 1997 and the Tolls Act of 1965. These laws are still in existence. They've not been abolished. And so it is respectfully, my opinion, it is inaccurate for anybody to allude to the fact that road tolls were abolished under, or President Akufo-Addo abolished road tolls. There is a difference between abolishing, a policy and suspending a policy. And I think that what the government of President Akufo-Addo did was to suspend the road toll. In fact, if you read paragraph 462 of the 2023 budget, what the current minister designated as promising was even stated in the 2023 budget. Government had the plans, the intention to, reintroduce road toll in a more digitized format, but I'm sure if Dr. Bawumia had won, maybe he would have considered that.
So we're currently in 2025.
Yes, and I'm saying that.
And it happened in 2022. I just want to quote something briefly that the finance minister is reported to have said, and this was in 2022. The Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, has admitted that the decision by government to abolish the road tolls has cost the country. The government scrapped the payment of road tolls of all public roads and bridges in the country in November 2021, after the Minister of Finance presented the 2022 budget statement and economic policy proposal of the government to Parliament. After the decision was taken and instantly enforced, the government hoped that the electronic transaction levy will replace the road toll. So at the time, we're told that it had been abolished.
And I'm telling you that from what you read, where did you find that the road tolls have been abolished?
Well, I just read to you. I said the Minister of Finance has admitted that the decision by government to abolish the road tolls has cost the country.
And I'm telling you that I don't know where you are reading from, but I am also informing you that the road tolls were not abolished, because to abolish it, then it means you have to revoke the law. Because this is a law setting.
So on what basis did you suspend it?
And I'm telling you that upon the negotiations with IMF.
You said it was an act of parliament.
No,
on what basis did you suspend it?
Upon the negotiations with parliament, the finance minister informed parliament that they were suspending the road toll and replacing it with the electronic levy. Because if you read, this is a publication by the Ministry of Roads and Highways, November 18th, 2021. We only suspended operationalization of toll collection, not the law, road ministry. And this is coming from the implementing agency. This is the road ministry telling us as far back as in 2021 that the road tolls were not going to be abolished. And in fact,
what I hear Gavin say that it must have been a unilateral decision, because if you say something was an act of parliament, for which reason it cannot be immediately abolished, then there must be processes to want to suspend it if you want to. And that's why government will call it illegal then.
I agree. If anybody says that maybe the processes, it didn't go through the right process, that's a different conversation we can have. But the point I'm trying to make is that there's a difference between abolishing, a policy and suspending the policy.
We all know that. Your point is well.
So allow me land. So what I'm trying to say is that the road tolls were suspended under the SY government and they were not abolished. And so to reintroduce it, and I've even mentioned to you that if you read paragraph 462 of the 2023 budget, the government had plans and the intentions to reintroduce road tolls. So if they were abolished, then it means government would have to go back in enacting new laws to establish the road tolls again. So I don't think that the road tolls were abolished, but they were suspended. And these two are, distinct things.
And you agree that the process of suspension may not have been done right?
I do not agree. I'm saying that is a different discussion we can look at.
Okay, let me hear you, Dadayo.
Yes. So let's start. First of all, there is a procedure you would follow when it comes to revenue. When you want to stop taking revenue or divert revenue or do something with revenue, the parliamentarians would be able to teach us or educate us what goes through. But indeed, I agree with him. The collections of road tolls were suspended. Now, they were suspended and replaced with e-levy. We asked the question, why suspend road tolls? Now, when in his submission, he was talking about IMF conditionalities. But you and I would agree that all their MPs, all their ministers, including Dr. Bawumia, who was chairman of economic management team, stated that the road tolls that we were collecting, e-levy could do better than the road tolls. And so for him to say that they had intentions to actually bring back the road tolls, so were they going to bring the road tolls apart with the e-levy? What explanations were they going to give to Ghanaians? I have stated that somebody ought to be held responsible for causing financial loss to the state. My brother, he used the word cumbersome when he was talking about the student loans. Alhaji Bawumia in August 2022, when he was talking about the fact that you no longer needed guarantors to access loans, in his statement, he also used the same word. He said that Dr. Bawumia stated, I'm reading from one of the webs. You can find it on Modern Ghana, you can find it on Joy Online and all of that. Dr. Bawumia stated that with the no guarantor student loan scheme, the cumbersome and restrictive scheme of students providing SNET contributors as guarantors before they could access student loan for tertiary education has been abolished.
What are you talking about?
I am making reference to the fact that he's saying that getting student loan, the procedures are so cumbersome. They abolished the cumbersome nature of it before leaving office.
I thought you'd focus on the road toll.
When
I was in,
okay.
You understand? So when we have given the opportunity to make statements, we ought to be honest enough there is no cumbersome nature in accessing money when it comes to, because we have Ghana card. That is how they made us to understand.
All right, let me hear Fred. And
now,
we'll
the very last one, I'm just
30 seconds, please. We don't have much time. I need to hear from Fred also.
You see, they ought to be able to review the operational activities of the Ghana Scholarship Secretariat. We do not have to absorb the stress and the burden of somebody paying his whether academic fees or whether admission fees. But I mean, if you Google right now, you will know that there is a clear distinction, and nobody spoke about academic fees. It will be difficult to talk about academic. I never had academic fees.
No,
you understand? So, if Ghana, we want to move forward, Ghana Scholarship Secretariat, they need to review their operational activities in the process. How they even identify potential students who have done so well and they can push them ought to be reviewed.
All right, I'm
Get
going to go
does
to Fred
the same
right
thing.
now.
So we should be clear on their activities.
All right, Fred, let me hear you.
Well, I think your time is fast spent. But let me assure my brother, we can do all the semantics and use all the words we want to use. As you rightly said, the road tolls was established, an act of parliament that set up the road toll at 540. And they were supposed to do a specific job. So even in preparing that particular year's budget, they factored in the revenue that we're going to get from the road toll. And so for a minister of state, without recourse to the law, to just issue a directive and say that I've either suspended, I've cancelled, I've terminated, whatever word you want to use, the road tolls, is a violation of the law that set it up. By whose authority did he either cancel it, suspend it, terminate it, or whatever you want to say? And so it is clear that he has caused financial loss to the state. There's the Road Funds Act at 536 that the road tolls are supposed to feed in whatever money we get from there goes to the road fund. And these monies are supposed to be for specific assignment, maintenance of our roads. Right? Periodically, and then immediate maintenance and all the things I need to do. They are supposed to support these assemblies in maintaining their roads. And since we suspended it, go and check up until 2 months before the elections that they brought these drip machines. That we saw them now trying to cut roads in the communities. And even there, people were not paid.
The maintenance.
And so, to be honest with you, that directive, that fiat, by a sector minister, without recourse to the law that set up that particular fund, is an issue that will be interrogated. You are the lawyer. You go to court and go and defend it by using whatever word you want to use. If it means that by doing so you have not violated the law, I think when we get to that bridge, we cross it. We have said that we are bringing the tolls back. We have said that the process by which drivers will go and queue at the tolls and spend hours over there and all that, we are going to remove it. We are going to do a digital system where, and like Nanaya said, when we travel abroad, we don't see people going to stand at a toll booth for several hours waiting before they can get their tickets before they move in. We know the corruption involved in that particular process.
The wastage.
The wastage involved. In the night, people go and print their own tickets. When you get, oftentimes when they give these tickets to us, we don't even check. You just collect them, put it in your car, or you take them, throw it away. So some of the allegations you have heard, some of the people who work around those areas, they will go and print their own tickets. So in the night or early in the morning when people are not really paying attention, they sell those ones first before they come and sell the one, the authorized one. We know all the things that have been happening to the road too. The money that is supposed to generate from that road too, if you really manage it very well, I'm sure we can use it to feed our roads. I remember prior to 2016 elections, one of the things that their running mate, Dr. Baumia said, was the fact that we don't even need to borrow money to construct roads in this country, and that all we need to do is to just tow our roads, and once we tow our roads, we get money and then face it. So the same person who said this now comes into power, then the minister issues a fiat, cancelled the road to, no explanation was given. They said they're going to replace the e-levy, but the e-levy to is something on it separately. And so it's an issue that we'll look at. I'm very happy that Naya has said a record straight.
All right.
That assessing student loan in this country, it's not that cumbersome. It was in those days,
right,
where the guarantor system was a major issue. But now, all you need to take admission letter.
Right. So I've got to read some comments now. We've got to hear the views from our.
Let me last line.
No problem. You see, 20 seconds. 20 seconds.
Yeah. 10 seconds. When my brother started submission about the killings and all that, very unfortunate situation. We don't expect the military, to face it off with the civilian.
Your 10 seconds are up. You want to say something?
Let me just land.
Yeah. No, check.
Yeah,
you want to say something?
At least they are directly investigated.
I just want to
But when people were killing,
hold on, Fred.
Oh no, but I didn't land.
Hold on, Fred.
I just want to read paragraph 462 of there. This is the 2023 budget.
Quickly.
Mr. Speaker, tolls charges on public roads were removed as part of supportive policy measures under the 2022 budget statement and economic policy of government. The fiscal policy measures to underpin the 2023 budget for consideration and approval by Parliament include reintroduction of tolls.
Did you reintroduce
on selected public roads?
All right. That's fine. My producers. Do you have that video?
You didn't reintroduce.
Hold on. Do you have that video? Yes. Let's play that video quickly. Hold on.
It was the same. It was the same budget after which you went to destroy all the roads.
Can we have that video, please?
Your minister said want to turn them into urinals.
No.
Is that what your minister promised? He said was going to turn them into
Listen.
More roads have been fixed and are being fixed over the last 5 years than any relative period in the entire history of our nation.
Then you do the
We even want to do a lot more, and this budget will cater for this. That is why for decades, governments after governments imposed and maintained tolls on some public roads to raise funds for road construction and maintenance. This is the situation in many countries. However, over the years, the tolling points have become unhealthy market centers, led to heavy traffic on our roads, lengthened travel time from one place to the other, and impacted negatively on productivity. The congestion generated at the tolling points, besides creating these inconveniences, also leads to pollution in and around the vicinities. To address these challenges, government has abolished all tolls on public roads and bridges.
Okay, so you had then Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta there. So you make your own judgment. No.
The word was abolished.
I'm saying let's leave it to the people to make their own judgment.
Maybe the people didn't hear.
Yes, he said abolished. I hear that. Yes. But let's still leave it to the people to make their own judgment. Yeah, that's fine. But the minister categorically said abolished. That's fine. So let me read a few of your messages here. Thomas says that minister should be made to answer the question. He talks about the former finance minister. Ernest says Ofori-Atta should have been in jail by now. This has paved way for No, you can't call him a level 100 student, please. I won't take that. The NPP governments were lawless. They do things anyhow. Today they are shouting due process. Okay, there are just many of them. I'm sorry. I cannot read all of them, but I got another one from my NPP friend who says, your NDC friend just mentioned that if a policy isn't working, a government shouldn't be shy to review it. If it's good for the NDC to review their no free stress policy, why would it be bad for the NPP to review the suspension of road tolls? That's from my NPP friend.
But this comparison is not here nor there. You know.
But I thought that the NPP never understood the meaning of the word review.
All right. So, thank you very much, gentlemen. Kwesi Bochwe Jr.
Yes, so as we go, I think that currently the NPP is in opposition. We are not in government.
Okay, that's fine.
The NDC has the goodwill of the people.
Okay.
So whatever they feel is good for the people of this country, they should do it. So they should deliver and stop referring to Dr. Wawia, referring to the former government.
Fred Agbenyo is Member of Parliament for the South constituency. They call it the Guan constituency now. We're going to go for a quick break. Cookie Tea is on standby. Together with Helen to bring you some more captivating content. Stay tuned.
This is the reason why I love Ghana.
Then
The lottery acquiring penty yenim se Ghana and Nadim Kunim.
We are one. Ghana as one.
We are proud about Ghana. Sabaya 2 years nano. Akos asundem ayen shop how we are.
Africa and the rest of the world salute Ghana.
Don't forget the lottery acquiring penty. Send love. Love